In our increasingly electrified society, a resilient electric grid is more important than ever. ITC Midwest builds, operates, and maintains electric transmission infrastructure connecting consumers to lower-cost, renewable energy sources to power our energy future. That means safe, secure, reliable electricity for those we serve. ITC Midwest is ensuring the greater grid can meet our energy needs now and long into the future. Learn more at itcmidwest.com.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Zack Kucharski. I'm the executive editor at the Gazette, and welcome to our final session of the 2025 Iowa Ideas Conference. I want to give one last thank you to all of our sponsors. A big thanks to presenting sponsor ITC Midwest, who you just heard from there, for their presenting sponsorship of this program. They've been with us from the beginning and a fantastic partner to making this happen and making the content accessible to everybody. I'm excited to be joined by Doug Goettsch. Doug is a seasoned hospitality professional with over 38 years of experience in the food and beverage industry. And if you've eaten in Iowa City, there's a good chance you maybe have visited one of the establishments he has had a hand in. But he's the co-founder of Big Grove Brewery in Solon and a partner with that project as well. And so he's had a huge influence on the local culinary landscape and excited to talk and to catch up. So welcome, Doug. Well, folks, if you want to give us a couple minutes, the Wi-Fi just went out, and never make Wi-Fi jokes before you have a live segment. And so we'll get Doug back as quickly as we can.
Zack?
Doug, I think we just had a quick karma lesson there.
We jinxed that. We'll pass that along to Elena.
Yes, I will never joke about Wi-Fi again ahead of a presentation.
No, that was a sure way to jinx that.
I believe, let me just check. I think we may be live. So I just want to thank everybody for staying with us as we go through our first internet glitch. And we were joking in the couple minutes ahead of starting that we hadn't had that happen yet today. And so, well, there's always a first time. So,
sure way to make it happen.
Yeah, no, for sure. So Doug, I appreciate you taking time with us today. And, obviously you've had a very, very busy few weeks recently with getting the project going, Big Grove in Omaha. And so you've had a lot of back and forth trips. And how are things going? When we last chatted, it was the weekend right before. How are things going?
It's fantastic. It's been received extremely well in Omaha. We have a great team out there that has gotten up and running. We had a little quiet soft opening for about a week to make sure that everything, all of our systems were good. And then we had a grand opening a week ago, Thursday. And it was just absolutely bonkers weekend out there. So a lot of our team members from our other locations have been out there to help get them up on their feet and running. And I was out there Sunday through Thursday, and they're doing a great job. Everything looks fantastic. Omaha's welcomed us with open arms. So we're really excited about the future out there.
Well, I'm curious how you're picking some of these selections. What led you out to Omaha?
My partner, Matt Swift, is that's his specialty inside the company. Is he's out. We get a lot of calls from a lot of communities around the Midwest, and we decided that the taproom model was how we were going to grow going forward, so that we could have a brewery in each location, a small brewery, and make it of the neighborhood that wherever we're in, whatever community we're in, we could make specific beers for those tap rooms, and then backfill them with our core brands. And the larger cities just seem to make a little bit more sense right now, especially as we grow our distribution network into the larger Midwest area.
Mm-hmm. As you get a project like this off the ground, did you ever expect, when you first were thinking about Big Grove Solon, that this would be the start of something this big?
Absolutely not. Yeah. I came back in 2013 to open up Solon, and we had no idea. I don't think anybody could have dreamt the scenario of where we find ourselves now. We started with a small 3.5 by 7 barrel system in Solon. I was just going to have the one restaurant. I was extremely happy. It had kind of been a lifelong dream of mine to have my own restaurant. Matt and Faye Swift made that happen, and that was going to be it. And then quickly, Matt started identifying a need for a tap room in Iowa City so that we could have a production facility. And once we opened the Iowa City location in 2017, we never thought we were going to outgrow that building. We expanded a few times inside of that building. Our beer kept growing and growing. And a year ago, June, we opened up a production facility on the southeast side of Iowa City that now has a 50 barrel brew house and 250 barrel fermenters and 500 barrel bright tanks. So our crew can make in 24 hours what it took us a year to make the first year we were open.
Wow, that is staggering.
Yeah, we couldn't make that up. So I've just been along for the ride. Matt has always been push as far as the beer side of the business, because we have the hospitality side and then we have the beer side. And he was really well versed in the beer side and the hospitality side. My specialty was kind of always food and hospitality. So I had no idea, but Matt and the rest of our team, Andy and our brewery team have been fantastic. They make great liquid and people love it.
They do. May know one of those people. Anyway, I wanted to talk a little bit about, before we get totally into Big Grove and today, talk a little bit about the earlier years. And so you're fairly local to the region. You grew up Clinton County. How did you get into hospitality and into the industry to begin with?
It was an injury. I was playing basketball and going to school at Clinton Community College. I had an injury that kind of ended my basketball career. And, we were not a family with a whole bunch of means. And my dad said, "Hey, you need to go get a job." And he found me a job washing dishes at the Clinton Country Club when I was just over 19 years old. And I quickly fell in love with the business. It was unlike anything I'd ever done. I grew up in Kelmus, small rural town, 350 people. Spent a lot of time working on the farm, either at my uncle's or as a hired man for a couple different farmers, friends of our families. And For the first time, I had a job in the hospitality industry, and I went from dishwasher to banquet setup to concession stand. And then I learned how to bartend, and that it was at that point that I thought maybe I'd like to make this business my career, and I changed my major. And I ended up graduating with a business degree with an emphasis in food service administration. I worked in Davenport for the Steeplegate Inn. The Baker brothers owned a couple of hotels, one in Clinton and one in Davenport. And I worked my way through every job there. I started out as a bouncer. I was a bartender. I managed the dining room for a while, then ended up as the manager of the nightclub. And after that, I moved to Phoenix and started working in a hotel down there, a large convention space. And I've been in this industry in one way or another my whole life, but I think it mainly started just because our family was so centered around food. And I just saw the warmth and hospitality that happened around the table all the time, and everything was centered around food gatherings. So it was, and I knew that no matter where I went, I could find a job in this industry.
Well, you mentioned family, but you were the youngest. There were 5 ahead of you, correct? So I mean, it was a full table. This wasn't cooking for 3.
No, my mom and dad, Dwayne and Dorothy, had 5 girls, and then they were done. And then 6 years later, I popped along, and I always told my parents that I was the best mistake they ever made. And I don't know that they always agreed with that term, but yeah. So my 5 sisters, I had kind of had the benefit of being in a large family, and then me being so much younger than all my sisters. By the time I was in junior high, it was just me and my parents. But every Sunday night we had chicken dinner, and it was our family. It was all there, and my mom always made chicken, and we usually had mashed potatoes and gravy and sweet corn that we had frozen from the year before, and it was chickens from my godmother, and that we butchered every fall. We butchered 75 chickens. My mom canned green beans, and she froze corn, and she made strawberry jam and grape jelly and peach jelly, and I joke sometimes. I said we grew up on organic food, but we just called it food because they when they started off, they did not have any money, as my mom would tell you. And so we did a lot of our own food prep. And a lot of it came from, whether it was beef from, one of my dad's friends, or pork from one of my dad's friends, or chickens from my godmother. Almost all the food that came into our house came not too far away from our house. So it was a good way to grow up because you were intimately involved in the production of it. Not much worse job than picking strawberries. Butchering chickens might be a little worse, but
I was going to say, on the scale, I would think the strawberries are a little.
But
easier.
it was everything was social. So we would literally pick a pickup bed full of sweet corn, and there might be 5 families there, and all of us kids would be out back shucking the corn, and my dad and his friends would be cutting it off the corn with electric knives, and my mom and her friends would be packaging it. And at the end of the night, it all got divvied up, and then we usually had dinner, and they would play cards and drink beer. And so everything was so socially centered around either the production of food or eating food, because, you'd go to my great aunt's house, and before you left, you had to have a little snack, and it's just homemade jelly and toast and maybe some coffee and a slice of cheese or something. But everything, it seemed, happened around our kitchen table or the dining room table.
You spent quite a bit of time. I think you were working for Hawkeye Food Service, and what was that experience like? You have a depth of knowledge from kind of an array of angles. So whether you're thinking about the management side of it or the supply side of it, when you were learning or working for Hawkeye, what was that experience like?
That was fantastic. I was actually the food and beverage director and then resident manager of the old Holiday Inn downtown Iowa City, and now the Graduate. And I had moved there from Nashville, where I'd been running a restaurant down in Nashville, and I came back to Iowa. And they wanted to transfer me, and I was in a a relationship at the time, and I didn't really want to leave Iowa City. I had fallen in love with Iowa City. Growing up, Iowa City was always the shining city on the hill. Watching football games and basketball games with my mom and dad growing up, and I just loved Iowa City immediately. It's got a lot of big city amenities, but still a very small town. So I didn't really want to leave. And luckily enough, someone reached out to me and said, "Hey, Hawkeye Foods is hiring a sales rep for the local area. Would you be interested?" And I was like, "Man, I don't want to be a sales rep. I don't, it's just not my personality." And I interviewed, and I remember the vice president that interviewed me said, "I can teach you how to sell. I can't teach you all the knowledge you have about food." Because at that point, I'd already been running restaurants for a couple of years and hotels. And the next thing I know, I had 10 and a half years behind me. And then I went into a department with a gentleman named Bill Ledger, was head of our chemical and coffee division. So I was his first sales rep, and we opened up some business there. But after a couple of years, I really didn't like that. It didn't have the same soul as dealing with food and helping people solve problems. So I went looking for a job, and another company actually interviewed me, hired me, offered me a position. I accepted, and I went into Jeff Braverman's office the next day, the owner, and I said, "Hey, Jeff, I'm going to leave. I'm going to take this other position." And he said, "No, you're not." And I was not prepared for that response. And he said, "Well, what do you want to do?" And I said, "Well, I'd like to have a say in, helping run the company." And he said, "I'm writing a job description right now for corporate chef. Would you like to be the corporate chef?" And I said, "I would, but I'm not a chef. I've run restaurants, run hotels." And he said, "Well, I'll send you to culinary school." And, over the course of a few months, we found the program in California at the Culinary Institute of America that was called the Accelerated Culinary Arts Program. And essentially what it is it's a 2-year degree, kind of condensed down into 10 months. And you have to have a BA or a BS to apply to the program. And then it's a 36-person cohort with 18 in the morning and 18 in the evening. So then I went into culinary school. I loved every bit of that. Hawkeye made that happen. We had an agreement that I would stay for at least 3 years after that. Fulfilled my 3 years, and I immediately wanted to get back to Napa, and opening came available as the director of corporate relations for the Culinary Institute. And one of my chef instructor's wives held that position. And she said, "I think you'd be perfect for this position." She was moving to advancement. I interviewed, and a few months later, I was back to Napa and back in California, working as the director of corporate relations for the Culinary Institute of America in Napa Valley.
So you did culinary school kind of later in life. I think you were
40.
40. What was that experience? I mean, just the experience. I mean, every time you see it, portrayed on TV, they make shows about the stress and the challenge. Take us through what was it like to be in the kitchen? And
it was amazing. I had a ton of experience, as you had alluded to, about Hawkeye Food Service. So I knew so much about products. And then growing up the way I did, I was always in the kitchen with my mom as well. And at 40, you're very mature. Most of us are. And I always said that I studied more in that 10 months than I did the 4 years of college, because I was enthralled by everything that we did. I volunteered for every conference, and I went out there with the mantra of nobody's going to outwork me. And so I just busted my butt all the time, every day. And I was a sponge. I got to work with unbelievable chefs. I got to know Thomas Keller and Chef Morimoto and Michael Chiarello and all these people that were in and around Napa Valley a lot. Was offered some very nice positions that I had to turn down because I had obligations to meet back in Iowa. But I loved every minute of it. It was, I knew that I had pulled a winning lottery ticket. I was out there, my company was paying for it. I had a company car. They kept me on salary. So I wanted to prove to them too that I was worthy of it. And then went through the program and got the Achievement Award for Culinary Excellence in my cohort. And then immediately sat for the A.C.F. Certification program to be a certified Chef de Cuisine, which is just one step below the certified executive chef. And for me, I wanted to do that because I wanted to prove that I had the knowledge, not just a degree. So there were 16 people in that certification process and only 8 passed, and I was one of them. It's a 4-day exam. You have to do 4 cooking practicals, then you have a week-long project, and then you have 8 written exams, along with being bombarded daily while you're in the kitchen with 2 certified master chefs that were on staff. And it was extremely strenuous. And I was one of the 8 that passed. And I came back to Iowa then and fulfilled my role as corporate chef for Hawkeye Foods. But it was some of the best 10 months of my career. Because I got to work with everybody and do anything and everything that you could imagine.
Did you go into with the plan that one day, you would have restaurants? I mean, where at that point, what was the vision?
I don't think necessarily I thought I was going to have a restaurant. I had gotten to the point where I probably thought that dream was maybe in my past, just because it takes a lot of money and capital to open up a restaurant, and I would have never had that opportunity without Matt and Faye tapping me on the shoulder. But I knew I looked at it as kind of the icing on my resume. If you looked at my resume, there's really not one job that I haven't done, from dishwasher to line cook to prep cook to demonstration chef to sales rep. So I had a vast array of product knowledge, and I had a vast knowledge of what to do with those products and how to apply them. And so I looked at it as kind of the icing on the cake of my resume. And then I think my idea was I was going to use the 3 years commitment that I had at Hawkeye, and then it was always going to go back into whether it was going to be a corporate chef somewhere, or I was offered a job with ironically with the U.S. Pork Board based in Des Moines. So I knew that I was going to always be in food. I just didn't know where. And then, lo and behold, I was home for Christmas in 2011, actually. And Matt and Faye approached me one night at Red's. I had stopped in there for dinner on the way back to my parents' house, and they slid in the booth across from me and said, "Hey, Matt wants to open up a brew pub. We want to know if you want to manage it." And I said, "Well, I don't want to manage it. I'd like to own one." And they said, "All right, you want to be a partner?" And we kind of agreed on it right then and there. And I went back for another, I think it was 15 months back to Napa, keeping in touch with them and kind of waiting to hear what they had for location. And we had a couple of stops and starts. And then finally they called me and said, "Hey, we secured the property in Solon, the former restaurant site in Solon, and it's going to be demolished and tore down, and new construction. And we're targeted for a 2013 open date." And I came back in May of 2013, and my first hire was Ben Smart, and he came back 2 days after me, and that's how everything got off the ground in Solon.
So that night that you were at Red's, what brought you back to town? And was that just a chance meeting?
Yeah, it was just Christmas, and at the time I had a house just down the street from Red's. That was my place. I'd known Matt and Faye for a long time. When I was at Hawkeye, actually, I was Faye's sales rep when she had Sluggers, her eponymous restaurant, her first restaurant she had. And so I'd known Faye for, now it's close to 30 years. And I watched Matt grow up. I've known him since he was just a kid, never dreaming that I was going to be his business partner at one day. But they knew me. And, unbeknownst to me, Faye had told Matt a couple of times we should do something with Doug. He has, the personality and charisma of kind of what we want. And her and I had talked a lot in her office back in the day at Sluggers about the right way to deliver hospitality and service. And so we knew we had some things in common. It was a very chance meeting.
But clearly you took the time to build a relationship. As you're meeting I mean, you get to know each other and share some of those philosophical, um, so that years later you're connected in a way that, when you're just in there as a rep.
Yeah. Faye was obviously very successful, and Matt had was under her wing, and then had taken over Sluggers, and then they had opened up Blackstone. So they were a known quantity, obviously very successful in the restaurant industry with a good reputation here in town. So I knew them fairly well. I also knew what they stood for because I was in Reds probably too often at times. But I don't know. I knew Faye. I respected her immensely. I knew Matt, him and my other business partners and some of the other things, Nate Kading and Corey, Kent, who was manager at Reds, were all going to become future business partners of mine. And they were all really hardworking. And that was the thing for me. I come from a pretty strong work ethic. There wasn't a whole lot of option. You just had to work hard. So I knew Matt very well. I knew he was a hard worker. I got along with him really well, and I really respected Faye. So, and my parents, loved Faye and loved Matt. So I don't think I ever even had a second thought. I just knew that there was an opportunity, and it was probably going to be my only opportunity, and I wasn't going to let it go by.
Talk a little bit about that, getting Big Grove off the ground. I mean, so they have a location. You're kind of living a split life out, keeping tabs on the project. But what was it like? I mean, had you been thinking about a brew pub? What what was that time?
I think Matt and Faye had described what they wanted. They wanted to build like a Reds in Solon. They wanted a little neighborhood spot. And my idea was always that, like, you keep the center of the menu approachable and familiar with people. And then when Ben joined, that's when everything shifted as far as food wise, because I told them, at the time, I was like, I can't run a kitchen anymore. That's a young man's game. And I had some ideas about where I wanted the food to go. And then when I approached Ben and he said yes, he was coming from, like very, very high-end dining, one of the top 40 restaurants in the United States called Herb Farm outside of Seattle. And so the opportunity came from Matt and Faye, and then the dynamic that Ben and I built was fantastic because he had more talent than I did as a chef. He was extremely talented. And we just hit it off. He had a phenomenal work ethic, works his butt off. He was scraping foam off tanks, before we opened because there was nothing to do. We didn't have a kitchen. So we were, I remember a 90-degree day, he's scraping spray foam off one of the tanks that was going to go into the brewery. And then when it came to creativity and his food, he taught me a lot. I think I taught him quite a bit too. He was used to the really high-end dining, and I had spanned everything from, casual upscale to the fine dining in Napa to, the country club back in my hometown, the old Wapsie Oak Supper Club. So I helped him kind of lean into a little bit more of the Iowa food, like tater tot casserole was the perfect example. Ben had no idea what it was. And I had always thought, I was like, man, if we could put tater tot casserole on a menu, and then my mac and cheese and a good burger that's based kind of off my great aunt's roadside cafe, and then Ben serving, ribeye with toasted hazelnuts and chimichurri sauce and potato galette, and I told them, Ben and I, we wanted to put food on the table that was all prepared fresh, prepared from scratch. We make our own stocks, we make our own pastas. At the time, we were making all of our own breads. And Ben famously said the one day, he goes, I just want to make it as hard as possible on myself. And so we collaborated extremely well. He worked on the fringes of the menu, and we really started putting some interesting dishes on. And I said I wanted fine dining quality food without the pretension. I wanted great service. I wanted people to really enjoy it, because restaurants are community where you come together and have food, whether it's with your kids or with your friends or maybe business associates. You're there to get nourished. You're there to get taken care of. You've chosen to spend your money with us. So I wanted to put on the best show in town. I wanted great food. Matt and Faye build beautiful restaurants. Faye's brother was the architect behind a lot of our restaurants. And Ben and I were just in sync from day one. And I respected his creative ability. He respected my knowledge. We learned a ton from one another, and it worked. It took off. I just remember the tater tot casserole. The first couple of weeks we were open, it was like the number 5 selling item. And at night, Matt and Ben were not convinced it should go on the menu. So at the end of the night, when our product mix would come up, and it was always in the top 5 selling items, I would screenshot it with my phone and text it to them. And I was like, tater tot casserole is doing pretty good. So it was the mix of the known and then we just wanted people to discover the rest of the food. I didn't want to push it down anyone's throat, not literally or figuratively. I wanted them to discover it. And I figured if enough times these dishes hit the tables or they saw it walk by a table, they'd order it. And they were like, oh, this is really good. This is going to resonate with them. And, we started working with farmers. Kroll Farms was the first farm we ever worked with. Dan and Debbie's Creamery. We were their first wholesale customer. I think we have a network of about 35 farmers now that we work with. And it was just this idea of we can show people that all the food that Ben and I had prepared or traveled and saw when we were around the country, we could bring it home to Iowa, and we didn't have to dumb it down, but we could present it in a way that made it more approachable and not threatening, because most people want to make sure they get a value for their dollar, and they're not going to go out on a limb and order something. And we weren't the cheapest show in town by any means. So we earned their trust, and then we were committed to cooking seasonally. And the first time we changed the menu, everybody was up in arms, and I said, don't worry, like the core items are going to stay there, but we're going to add things that you will like. And often you will forget what you told me was your favorite dish, and this dish will come on. So we changed the menu up in Solon and at all the locations now seasonally. We have spring, summer, fall, and winter menu. Ben and I were both really committed to that. I wanted to cook with the seasons. I wanted to cook with as much fresh produce as we could around here. We can't be. I always tell people that we're as local as we can to be economically sustainable as a restaurant. It's different if you're cooking in Napa or Seattle where you have a 12-month growing season. So we have to supplement it with a lot of things from our distributor, but we do push as much as we can onto the plate that's local.
You make it sound like it's easy, that everything fits in a nice orderly box. For somebody that's maybe never been behind in the kitchen, what is it really like? I mean, how crazy? I think working in a restaurant's got to be one of the hardest jobs. And it's hard to be successful because of the need to be consistent, the need to talk a little bit about that.
Well, it is, and the industry that I grew up in is thankfully way different than the industry that I'm in now, and what I've fostered in Solon. I said there's not going to be a divide between the front of the house and the back house. Everybody's doing the job that they want to do, And I worked in restaurants where servers and cooks didn't respect one another and they fought. And I always said the most important person in our kitchen is the dishwasher, because you can make all the pretty food you want, but if you don't have a clean plate, it's not leaving the kitchen. And part of that is because I started as a dishwasher. So I've kept that mentality. It's hard work. Like there's no two ways around it. My youngest son is in culinary school right now, and he's working at a restaurant up in Cedar Rapids, Cobble Hill, one of the great restaurant. And, he called me the other night at 11 o'clock and he was like, Doug, I don't know what I got into. And I'm like, you're fine. I always tell people it's the two rules to work at Big Grove are show up on time and work hard, and everything else will take care of itself. And in the kitchen, you're working in high temperatures, you're working with sharp things, you're working with things that will burn you and poke you. And, and you're working in very close quarters. So you have to build a team of people that you like to be around, because 6:30 on Friday night, like, it's crazy. But I like that crazy. I've always liked walking into the chaos and making order, and I love the thrill of it, because it's instant gratification. I make food, I put it in front of you, and you're like, this is great. And I'm like, I know it is. Like, I wouldn't put it on your table if I didn't think it was great. And I love that aspect of it, of introducing people to new flavors or old favorites that, give them good memories, because food has so many memories associated with it too. Time and place, if you ate, ice cream every night with your dad, or whatever it is, if we can create those memories for you for a brief minute, I think that's really the successful part of our job. But no doubt, it's crazy.
No, I can only imagine. The space, and they would not be easy places to be learning on the fly either.
No, and those people quickly, kind of self-identify, and but we're there to support people. We always tell them, you'll pick up the pace, you'll get it. Like, if you just apply yourself, you'll get it. If you want to be here, like, we're here to help you. There's no Gordon Ramsays in our organization. Nobody's screaming and yelling at people. I hated that. I show you what our standard is. My aunt always said that. She's like, my standard's right here. I'll do everything I can to pull you up to that standard. And if I can't get you there, I'm going to shake your hand and pat you on the back and wish you well at your next job, because it's no reflection as you as a person, but like, we're trying to do something here. Like, we're trying to be the Yankees or, the New England Patriots. And so we only want driven, caring, empathetic, compassionate people on our team that understand that we're not just the average restaurant. We are going to do things differently. We're going to treat you differently. You're going to be encouraged. And if you want to learn and grow, all I do is point to Chef Ben. I said, Ben was the first employee here. Now he's a partner in Big Grove, and he and I are partners in 4 other restaurants. So we have plenty of opportunity for people, because this industry, it's hard to keep people. And we've been extremely lucky because of the culture that we've built, that we've kept a lot of people. We have a lot of people that have worked with us since day one. And that's the important part to me, is make sure that the people that are working for us feel cared for and heard, and we give them a good place to work.
Talk a little bit more about that. What types of things are you doing in terms of culture, and as you go along? It's easy when you're in one location, but folks that live around Solon maybe understand what the culture of that restaurant is. But when you open up in Omaha, you're just another location. How do you what is that culture, and how do you work to build that to bring people in?
Well, you're touching on one of my biggest fears, is as we grow that we lose what's special. But I'm finding out that we grow because we've had so many talented people join us. And Matt and Faye and I decided a long time ago that we wanted to give people a career option in this field and work with us. We wanted to be one of the best brewing and hospitality companies in the country, not just in Iowa. So how do you do that? You have to retain your people. And how do you retain people? Well, you pay them well. You provide them benefits, which we've done. We provide health insurance, and we pay 50% of the premium. We give paid time off now to hourly staff. We started a 401k. We do paid maternity and paternity leave for couples, whether it's natural birth or adoption. So it's all these little things that we do to try and make sure that we keep the best people available that want to be in this industry. And our store leaders, our store directors in 3 of the 5 stores now started out as servers or bartender for us. And Katie in Solon is now owner of 10% of that store. Andrew in Cedar Rapids owns 10% of his store. So we give them opportunity. And as we grew, we had, it was in 2020, in January of 2020 was when Faye and Matt and I decided that we needed to start sharing this with some key staff, because we didn't want somebody to leave us for a better opportunity if we could provide them that better opportunity. So we diluted our shares and we sold shares to our first 5 key members, which was Chad Young, Andy Joint, Dave Moore, Danny Stanley, Josh Seiler, and then Jill, who Jill was Matt's admin assistant, and I was our head of HR. Josh was a bartender and brewer and is now our head of brewery logistics. So we knew we wanted to keep all those people there. And I always said, I was like, I'll make less money if I can sleep better, knowing that everything's okay and that we don't have to keep constantly looking to backfill staff. So a lot of it is just, I was talking with Matt yesterday and talking about managers, and I said, you just got to be in the mud with them. Like you got to, I go in and I bust tables still, because that's what I can do. I can bust tables and I can put paper towels in the restrooms and all those things. And I liked that. I wanted to show them that I wasn't going to ask them to do anything that I haven't already done or I would be willing to do. So if you want to be a part of the team, then just do what we do. And if you didn't, I was just going to wish you well. But we're trying to draft like first rounders all the time. And we're just trying to collect talent because we're not going to slow down. We have another location on tap in Kansas City, and we need good quality people that understand who we are and what we are.
You've talked a lot about the staff side, but you also have done some things in the community as well. So you have the Big Grove Foundation that launched, and how are you working to connect, with communities as well? What was the thinking kind of behind the foundation? And
yeah, Matt was always pretty adamant about that too when we started to grow. That there was a Danny Meyer philosophy behind Shake Shack, that every time they put a Shake Shack somewhere, it was 80% of what Shake Shack was, but then 20% of the community that it's in. And Matt and I were we were sold on that side, and so we've always been community minded. My brother-in-law a long time told me, he said, I spend money with the people that spend money with me. So in Solon, we supported, the academic side, the athletic side, any civic organization, the food bank, because I think that's your responsibility as a person, as a business owner, which is to support the people that support you. And as we got bigger, the amount of asks that we get are substantial weekly. From the restaurant industry is asked for a lot of donations, and we had to find some way to kind of funnel these into one area and make sure that we could have our money have the most impact. So when we founded Big Grove for Good, it has evolved now into its own 501c3 charity. Michaela Demet is our executive director. She's started out as a server and was an event coordinator, and now is the head of the charity. She helps me run that. Actually, I should say I help her run that because she does the bulk of the work. But we wanted to we wanted to also have an impact where we're moving with the tap rooms. So we came up with neighborhood beer, which was a light lager that we had a lot of faith in. We knew that was kind of the direction of our customer was going, towards a lighter beer. So what we decided was that we were going to fund the charity with about $20,000, and then $1 for every case sold would go back into this fund. And then we would do micro grants. So we could kind of turn beer into community building power. And the micro grants then are anywhere from $250 to $1,000. It's just like small connection and care. My example is, Zack, if you have an elderly neighbor next door and the railing fell off their porch, and you said, boy, I want to help them, but I just don't have the money to do that, you can apply for a micro grant and say, I need $250 to put a railing on my neighbor's porch. And we send you the money, then you go build the project, and then you send us the results of that project. we don't have this big lag time of saying, well, we need to burden you. You go buy all the products and then we'll give you the money. No, we'll give you the money to go do it. And it's just, we're trying to provide a way for positive and lasting change in your community and to help you take care of the people around you. One of my favorite sayings is always, I'm just trying to make my corner of the world a little bit better every day. And Big Grove for Good and neighborhood beer is a way that we can do that and fund that. We work on enhancement and accessibility. We do environmental stewardship, community connection events. So we do a lot of cultural things. And then, like I said, the neighbor nominated projects. So it's just a way to make sure that each community that we're in, the people know that we're not a brewery from Iowa City. Omaha's Big Grove is not an Iowa City brewery. It's Omaha's brewery. It's Des Moines brewery. It's Cedar Rapids brewery. It's Iowa City's brewery, and it's Solon's brewery. And it all comes from that small town idea that I was raised with, where my parents did a lot of work and volunteered in the community all the time, and so that was kind of born into me, and I wanted to make sure that we could do that. And this is a way to have a much bigger impact on our communities. We do $8,000 grants too once a year for a grant process through the Big Grove for Good Foundation for other charities as well.
No, it's a program that you certainly don't see. Breweries or many organizations taking on something that aggressively that you have. So that it's a neat part of the family, so to speak. A couple minutes ago, you mentioned 2020, and when you play back, I don't want to cause acid reflux on a Friday afternoon. But, you were talking about that was obviously the start of the pandemic, and things changed a lot. How stressful of a time was that in the organization, and obviously, what got you through that period?
A little moment of vulnerability and frankness here. I remember after we closed down in Solon at the time, we just had Iowa City and Solon at the time, and I had also by that time we had opened up Pullman and St. Burch Tavern and my other restaurant groups. And I remember leaving work the one day, and I got married 9 months after we opened up Big Grove, and I had put everything that I had into Big Grove Solon. We had no money. My wife, I had 3 stepsons, and by the time 2020 came along, we were just getting over the hump. I could. There were times where I was like, told my wife, I'm like, you can't go buy groceries this week. Just hang on for a little bit. So we were starting to see a little bit of daylight then, and then this hit, and I was terrified. And I remember calling Faye one afternoon in late March, and I said, Faye, I've looked at everything. I said, I can probably survive a cash call at all 4 locations, but I don't think I could survive a second one. I said, what do I do? After that, do I mortgage my house or what? She said, no. She's like, we go to our banking partners and we borrow more money. She's like, Doug, we will get through this. And I just kind of forgot for a moment who my partners were, and the wherewithal and the reputation that they had in town. And immediately after that chat, the next day I walked into the restaurant and I told Andrew Mitchell, who was my GM in Solon at the time, I said, hey, we're going to steal the Shawshank Redemption line. Either get busy living or get busy dying. But I said, whatever we got to do, we're going to do it. And every day we're going to show up and we're going to put the jigsaw puzzle together. And tomorrow it's going to be different. And what I say today might be different than what I say tomorrow, because everything was happening, in a 24-hour cycle of trying to figure out what we could do and couldn't do. And, but, it was never going to be failure for a lack of effort. Matt said that the one time too. And, if it was just going to be me and him standing in the kitchen, making burgers and fries and washing dishes, then it was going to be him, but it wasn't going to fail from a lack of effort. And we did have great banking partners, and the community supported us like crazy. We immediately flipped to doing pickup meals, and Solon and Iowa City supported us and allowed us to keep open and keep cash flow going. And it was a scary time. And we also took the time to make a lot of improvements in the restaurants while we were closed. We cleaned and got everything organized, and we did some smaller capital projects that we knew that we could. And when we knew the opening and we started to kind of figure out the rules, then we opened up as soon as we could. And our outdoor space was always helpful, especially in Iowa City. The patio out there, people were feeling much better about being outside. So our spaces that we had designed actually helped during the pandemic. But once we got through into the summer of 2020 and into the fall, there were some shutdowns and opens, but I just never lost faith in the fact that we were going to figure out how to do it. But I don't ever want to figure out how to do that again. So it was very, very trying, to say the least.
Doug, I wanted to ask, obviously you have a lot of different projects, a lot of different restaurants. How do you keep them, first of all, how do you have the time to do that? But, maybe a little more seriously, how do you give them their own identities, and how do you, not work to cannibalize yourself?
Well, that's a great question. I think, one, I'm not doing everything anymore. Like our, the Gold Cap restaurants, which are Barrett's Quality Eats, Hamburg No. 2, Pullman, and St. Burch. We have we sold shares to our two operating partners. We have John Mask and Stephanie Breitbach are on the ground running those 4 restaurants day to day. And then each location has a manager, each location has a chef. And so, it goes back to the quality of the people again. We have a ton of good people that are working for us. We don't just go willy-nilly into restaurants. We look at a concept and we're like, I think that's a niche that needs to be filled in our community. Nate is always pretty good about that. When he came back after the NFL, he was really good about kind of sussing out locations for us. And we knew we had the creative culinary powers of Ben and myself when it came to creating menus. And then we knew how to do the hospitality side. And then we found the right people, and then we execute. And we've always looked at all of those restaurants as long-term. We wanted to be fixtures. Hamburg, I just didn't want to see Hamburg leave. I knew Dave and Roma Panther that owned it. It had fallen into disrepair and lost its luster. And I wanted that because that was an important part of Iowa City history. But yeah, we just have people that, show up and do a great job for us every day. And we try to take care of them as best we can. And I do more coaching and mentoring now than I don't actively manage any of the restaurants any longer. And Solon, Katie Nugel is the store director. I still have my desk up there, and I was up there last night for dinner, but we have teams of people now that really have carried our vision forth from what Faye and Matt and myself started. And we try to get them involved in ownership so they have skin in the game and they understand it. And we grow as long as we keep fostering a great environment that encourages great people to join our organization.
You mentioned that you thought that at first that was a threat as you keep kind of having new people join the organization. How did you come to peace with that?
I can tell you that one of the lessons that I've learned as I've gotten older now, I'm 58. I've been in this industry since I was 19. I think the biggest thing for me was you have to learn how to control your ego. You can't take credit for everything because you don't do everything. And I think when you're younger, you want to make sure that everybody knows you did what you did and you're doing all your work. And as I get older, I realize that you have to teach the people what you want, show them what you want, how you want it done, work beside them, and then let them do it. And sometimes they're not always going to come to the same, or they're going to take the same path. But if the results are the same, that's fine. And you can't get so hung up on the ego of saying, no, this is my idea and this is the way I have to do it. My success is built on the fact that 600 people show up every day for work and work really hard. I tell my sons that. I'm like, the reason that we have what we have is because all these people choose to come to work every day and work really hard. And then people drive by multitudes of restaurants to come to our restaurant and eat. So very appreciative of that. But it really is like the people that we have in all of the locations that we have that are the reason for our success. And that's the part of me. Like I can't take credit for as much anymore, and I don't. But then I make sure that I share credit with everyone too. That's a good leader. That saying is, a good leader takes more of the blame than they should and accepts less of the praise than they should. And I've tried to live by that, because you can't do this all by yourself. And it's not just me. I would have never had this opportunity without Matt and Faye at all. I would have never been able to raise the capital to open up a restaurant. And I had been out of operations for a while, and I wouldn't have probably been successful. I called Matt, daily. I think he got really tired of me the first couple of months, but so none of this is done in a vacuum. None of this is done, on my own. It's just this collection of really, really cool people. And we like each other. Like we genuinely like spending time with one another when we go to work. Our business consultant said that. He goes, we have 27 companies that I've rolled this thing out. He said, you guys are the only one that 9 of you will sit in a room, argue back and forth all day long over your vision and goals for the quarter. And then as soon as you're over, you're like, all right, where are we going out to eat? What are we going to drink? And I always tell people, if you travel with us, you're going to eat and drink well. And I think that's why it makes it all worth it, is I genuinely love seeing the people that I go to work with every day. Because if we don't, they tend not to stay, it's hard to be a part of a team if you don't want to be a part of a team. And my staff and my managers will just kind of gently like push people out that are not contributing to the whole. And that's what I love about it. I love coming to work every day. I throw a party for a living. That's what we do. We invite you into our house, and you listen to cool music, and you get great food and great beer and great drinks, and you're served by great people, and you're taken care of. And so like, why would you be upset? This is what you do for a living, is you throw a party and everybody comes, and it's a great business, and I've loved being in it.
That's fantastic. I think we didn't know this when we were picking keynotes, but I think we have heard from 3 optimists in terms of just the potential and what's possible, and certainly drive. And so, Doug, I appreciate you taking the time with us this afternoon. It's been fascinating to kind of learn more of the story, and certainly learn more about you and the drive that you've had. I think that's it's a fantastic story, and for those of us that are watching that live in the region, I think it's especially meaningful to kind of, it gives us a greater understanding of the organization kind of behind the scenes. And so thank you for what you do.
Well, if anyone comes in the door, just ask if I'm around, and I'm always happy to talk to people. That's my job.
Well, hopefully you don't learn to regret offering that up.
No, I'm easy to spot. So,
yeah. Well, thank you, Doug. And for all of our viewers here, I appreciate you taking time. That will do it for this year's installment of Iowa Ideas. I hope you've had a great time with the experience, the idea sharing, and the questions. If you missed a session, don't worry. All of the recordings for the sessions will be showcased on the Gazette's YouTube channel, as well as the Iowa Ideas website, iowaideas.com/replay. As always, we appreciate subscriptions and support of the Gazette. That's what makes events like Iowa Ideas happen. And thanks again to all of our sponsors, our more than 200 panelists, our advisory council members, and the attendees. I hope you have a great afternoon. Thank you again, everyone. Take care.
Thanks, Zach.
Thanks, Doug.